Our guest is a prolific, world-renowned artist with over 30,000 paintings under his belt. Wow. In 1982, he moved to New York City, and by 1984, he was already a prominent figure of the East Village art scene. He is most known for his paintings of faceless figures, which often comment on contemporary political, social, and psychological issues. His paintings are displayed all over the world, including in New York City. He has designed album covers, a Swatch watch, and public works throughout Italy, where he divides his time between Rome and New York City. Welcome to the Motivation Show, Mark Kostabi.
Thank you, Eli. I feel motivated already.
Well, Mark, it was really great to meet you a few weeks ago at my event in New York City, and I kind of feel like I developed a quick little bond with you. You're an easygoing guy. For a guy that's put out 30,000 paintings, you are, pretty cool, laid back kind of guy. So I want to thank you for, being a great guy.
Thank you.
And so my first question, and probably I think a first question that a lot of people have asked you, is the obvious question. Why the faceless figures? What do they represent?
I paint faceless figures to have a universal visual language, something that transcends racial and national barriers.
Ooh, powerful.
People can read their own stories into it. And that explains why my work resonates in so many different cultures, not from Japan to Turkey to Estonia, Germany, certainly heavily in Italy and throughout the United States.
So, Mark, what are you most concerned about in the world today in 2023 and that you are reflecting in your art?
Oh, that's a good question. Not all of my art is political, although some of it is, and a lot of it does comment on human psychology and social issues. I've always echoed the influence of technology on humanity. So some of my paintings speak about the good and the bad of the iPhones and computers, and I'm positive, and I see technology as generally a good thing. Certainly, the disaster in Ukraine has affected me profoundly, and I've reflected that in a delicate way in some of my recent paintings, hopefully in a positive light. I'm all for the Ukrainians to triumph and gain peace. And then now that I work with Park West Gallery, I see a lot more of the world. I go to places I would never have dreamed of going to, or never even have thought of going to, like Croatia, the Greek islands, and ports in the United States that I've never been to Galveston before, and now I go to places like San Antonio and Galveston, and I go to Las Vegas a lot, and it's just been a wonderful adventure, literally sailing the world on gigantic cruise ships that are celebrating art and life and music.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So, I was curious, Mark. I'm the kind of guy that can barely draw stick figures. When did you first find out that you had this huge artistic talent? How did it all develop?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned stick figures, because it was stick figures that led to my signature style that I'm well known for and that I'm financially successful for. But that happened in 1980 when I was still an art student. Before that, I drew a lot as a little kid. At age 6, I just loved drawing. And I must have been good at it because all my friends and family members and teachers told me I was, and they encouraged me, and they kept watching me while I was drawing. So I felt I had command over people's behavior, their eyes, and all that positive encouragement. Also, I had great parents who were both artistic. They both played musical instruments. My mother was a piano teacher. Father made musical instruments as well as playing them. And so I was never discouraged from being both a pianist, composer, and a painter. But the stick figure played a role. Long after I learned to go beyond the stick figure, I made realistic portraits, and you can see some references to my figure painting here, Italian architecture. But when I was in art school, I was taught that to succeed, you have to have an identity, a visual identity. You have to kind of get to know your artistic soul and have a unique voice. And something made me conclude that you can truly be yourself and have your original voice if you do exactly what you love doing. And I was full of energy, so I would make all kinds of drawings, including scribble drawings and stick figures, which seemed like going backwards because I already could do realistic portraits, but I liked the energy in them. And people looked at them and they liked the stick figures. And so I could see that they were communicating because the poses, the dynamic poses and the energy, and little by little, because of the feedback I was getting from my audience, they evolved into what is now the classic Kostabi figure, the faceless humanoid, or some people call it every man or every woman, because everyone seems to be able to relate to it. Then when I moved to New York in 1982, I went beyond the line drawings and started making paintings of what my more evolved stick figures would look like as if they were sculptures. So I fell back on my knowledge of academic painting and chiaroscuro and sfumato, and made kind of realistic paintings of unrealistic scenes.
If somebody today was offered $5 million starting out, and they were told to do something they didn't love, or they had a choice to forego the $5 million and do exactly what they love, tell me what the choice would be and why.
Well, my choice would be the latter. First of all, 5 million, it's not that much anymore. But it's significant. It's significant, you know. But even if it was $1 billion, which is a significant sum, I would choose to forego the easy money and do exactly what I love doing, even if the payoff was minimal, even if I had to struggle. And, you know, there's a cliche that artists start out struggling and gradually become either rich and famous or just peter out struggling. That's a myth. I didn't start out rich. I didn't start out poor. I started out kind of struggling middle class, lower middle class, but I've never struggled. I've always been happy, and I've always felt free. And you know, I had regular jobs when I was a teenager for a while. You know, I was a janitor, worked in a Pier 1 import store. These things lasted a few months, but most of my life, I was just being an artist, and I managed to start selling my drawings at age 18 or 19 when I was still an art student at Cal State Fullerton, to Hollywood's top film producers and TV producers, people like Norman Lear, Dan Melnick, Ray Stark, Billy Wilder, the famous film director, collected my work when I was still in art school, a teenager. And this was through a Molly Barnes gallery in Los Angeles. And my teachers were kind of jealous. They said, "How'd you get in there?" Because they didn't have galleries that represented them. But I was very ambitious, and I could see that my drawings were communicating. So I figured, you know, I'm as good as David Hockney. I'm going to go out and try to get me a gallery. It was kind of like a fairy tale the way I walked into the first gallery, Molly Barnes, and she embraced my work and started selling it to all these VIPs. But that was for very little money. Like, first few were $100 each. Now my drawings go for $10,000 each or more. And I'm getting record prices on those cruise ships with Park West Gallery. They sold a painting of mine for $180,000 not too long ago. And often they go for over 100,000. These are at auctions, so there's competitive bidding. And then I'm selling my larger sculptures for $300,000 each successfully. So I've come a long way from my days growing up in Whittier, California, and attending Cal State Fullerton. But I still feel like I'm only beginning, in a way, even though I'm 62 years old. I'm super excited about buying my new villa here in Rome, where I'll be hosting parties and residential concerts. frequently the Park West Gallery will send 100 or 150 collectors to my house here in Rome, my current apartment where we are right now, and we'll have I'll give a little speech. I'll play some pianos, some original compositions, look at all the paintings, and then we'll go to dinner at a restaurant full of my paintings, and then the next morning we'll all go on a cruise together. That's a very clever
Tough
way.
life. I like that.
Yeah.
Good reward for getting a painting.
And my life is like your background appears to be,
my background, for those that can't see it, is palm trees and beautiful water.
Palm trees, beautiful water, gentle breezes.
Yep.
I'm frequently in atmospheres like that, and it is wonderful, but also in more unusual places like Dubrovnik, where they filmed, what's it called, that famous show. It'll come to me later. But anyway, I see interesting places. I'm about to go to Australia and the Fiji Islands. And now the Park West Gallery has opened up a bricks and mortar outfit in Soho, in New York.
Yeah, New York City, 411 West Broadway between Prince and Spring Streets, yes.
And that is a legendary block. In the 80s, the whole international art world migrated to that block to visit the Leo Castelli Gallery, the Mary Boone Gallery, and Ileana Sonnabend Gallery, and numerous other important galleries. We were there all the time at the art openings. It was a wild scene. The 80s were a big art party. You'd see celebrities all the time, and major artists like Andy Warhol would always be out going to openings and art parties and at nightclubs like the Palladium, Danceteria, and Jean-Michel Basquiat, and all the top 80s artists would be there on that same block, which is coming back to life now, thanks largely to Park West Gallery, because Soho stopped being the center of the international art world in the 90s. Sometime in the 90s, they all migrated to Chelsea, which is where my townhouse is. And I hope you come to one of my parties there, Eli, because
I'm there.
Yeah, you'll be invited. You and Steve Guerin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mutual friend.
Can't wait. Well, I wanted to ask you, Mark, I have a friend and he talks about that you have to have luck, right? So I'm looking to find out what your formula is for success. How much part luck, how much part hard work, how much part, collaboration, what is the formula for Mark Kostabi for success?
Okay, that's a good question, and I'm prepared to answer that. But first, let me respond to the luck thing, because I do feel lucky, but just to be alive and healthy, because we're all lucky in that respect, because anything can happen at any moment. But we're here, and we're able to talk and think and have friendly dinners with each other, etc. That's kind of lucky, but I also believe that it's, and a lot of people say that it's part luck to succeed in the art world, but I don't think I think that demeans the decisive decisions that we can make to quote unquote make our own luck, or increase the odds that something lucky is going to happen. Like in playing chess, it's not one brilliant move; it's an accumulation of small advantages, and if you keep making these intelligent small advantage moves, it's possible that you'll get lucky and your opponent will make a blunder, and then you can go in for an immediate victory. That's luck if someone makes a mistake that's in your favor. But for me, it's been not hard work either. I'm not saying that you have to work hard to be successful, and I'm not saying you have to be lucky. I'm saying you have to follow the 6 rules of how to become a rich and famous artist.
There we go.
Yeah, and I've done a TED talk on this, and the rules are: number 1, make great art; number 2, live in New York; number 3, circulate; number 4, be professional; number 5, and this is very important, have a story; and number 6, get other people to work for you.
Ooh, I like that. The Big 6. That's a book right there.
6.
That's not only a book, that's a documentary.
Planning on the book.
There we go.
I've done a TED talk on it. Those will be the 6 chapters. I'm going to do the book, and it's applicable to almost any career. Like for artists, rule number 2, live in New York, is unquestionably the easiest way to go. But if you want to be a big commercial actor, it would make more sense to live in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Or a country music star, it's probably a good idea to live in Nashville. Or wherever. You basically have to live where the opportunities are.
I like that.
And circulating is kind of universal in any career, basically networking, going to all the parties and meeting the movers and shakers, and then not only doing that, but behaving in an appealing way. Like I met you at a party, and here we are doing this podcast thing, and it wasn't only because we were both at the party, but we related to each other in a positive, productive way.
Yes. Yeah.
We didn't say the wrong things to each other. If we had, maybe that could happen next time. But right now we're going strong. So it's not only going there, but it's going there and not being a jerk. You got to let the other person shine. Like right now, you're letting me shine because I'm being interviewed. But if we were at lunch right now, I would be sure that you talk as much as I do, so that there's an equilibrium.
Yeah, it's wise counsel. And there was a person who ran the Brooklyn Dodgers baseball team back in the 1950s. His name was Branch Rickey. And he's the guy that broke the color line. He got Jackie Robinson into baseball in 1947. And his definition of luck was luck is a residue of design. How do you like that definition?
I
right?
love that.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Residue of design. That's beautiful.
It's not just dumb luck. I mean, you have to put things into place. You have to put those 6 rules. You do have to have some elbow grease. You don't have to work 7 days a week, but you do have to work, and you have to work in the right place, as you say. And I was going to ask you the question before you answered it already. I was wondering why you moved to New York from California back in the early 80s. And why do you actually think your career took off so quickly in the East Village art scene of the day?
Well, for some reason, I was really instilled with a profound hunger for success. Possibly because I am the son of immigrants who moved to the United States, not speaking English very well at all at first. And they came here after World War II to escape the Soviet Union and also to find the American dream. And I think they did, because they raised 4 kids in Southern California in a beautiful neighborhood. So they had the dream, but they didn't become multimillionaires. But I did, and I think I wanted to pursue their dream further. And I still often feel like I'm trying to please my mother, and I think that's a good thing, because she was good to me, created me. So I'm grateful, and I think about her and my father all the time. And so I had this burning desire to succeed fast. Instant gratification was okay for me. That's what I wanted. Now, a lot of other artists that I went to art school with didn't have that, and some of them never left, and they just stayed there, and they're unknown artists, but they're happy. They have jobs in art supply stores, and they've raised kids and all that, but they didn't have the burning drive. One of my fellow students, who was actually older than me, Fred Tomaselli, a good friend of mine, we went to art school together. He wasn't ready to move to New York when I did in 1982. And we talk on the phone all the time, and I said, Fred, you got to come to New York. This is where it's happening. And he resisted and kind of resented it. But finally he did it, and he quit his job at the frame shop. And little by little, he became a huge success. And his paintings go for way more than mine now. They go for over $1 million each. But I'm working on changing that. I'm having good progress.
Take the plunge,
take the risk. My thing is quantity. I do so much. Yeah. He does like 20 paintings a year or something like that. I don't know. I do a lot more than 20 paintings a year, as you said.
To get up to 30,000.
So I'm doing very well financially, and I'm having a lot of fun. But there are different ways of conquering the art world in New York. Fred did it the slow and steady way and has an impeccable reputation. My reputation is controversial. I've been in the National Enquirer for getting in fights with television hosts. So you're safe because it's a Zoom call. I can't get in a physical fight with you like I did with Morton Downey Jr. back in the 80s. I've been on the Joe
I think
Franklin
Morton's
show.
got into a bunch of fights with a lot of
Yeah,
people, Neil.
it was not a surprise, but that was crazy. He claimed I tried to bite his thumb off.
Oh boy.
And anyway, so I had a controversial reputation, and I've kind of matured now, or at least created the illusion of maturity. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I have been referred to as the bad boy of the art world more than one time, frequently in page 6 of the New York Post, where I've been appearing a lot lately, thanks to my new partnership with Park West Gallery. And also thanks to our fabulous mutual friend, Steve Guerin.
I got to tell you, Mark, Frank Sinatra said, he did it my way, right? Sometimes you just got to do it your way and not worry about the critics, because there's always going to be critics out there. There's always going to be somebody wanting to take, a pot shot at you. That's just life, right? Anytime you're in the public view, there's always going to be the naysayer out there. But sounds to me like you're doing a lot right, and you're putting a lot of good out in the world. Actually, what are you most proud of?
Well, there are a few things. One of my proudest moments was in 1986. I had the ability and the honor to invite my mother to New York and bring her to the Metropolitan Museum to see one of my giant paintings hanging between Picasso and Cézanne and Van Gogh. That was a proud moment. The painting's 8 by 6 feet. It's in their permanent collection. It's called Requiem. And then I'm also very proud of having art in the permanent collections of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and the Guggenheim, the Brooklyn Museum, the Corcoran, the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art. Being from Los Angeles, that means something to me. And Memphis Brooks Museum, they have a major Kostabi painting. And then museums all over Europe. And I'm proud about all those things. And also I'm really proud to have had my music performed at Carnegie Hall on 3 separate occasions, with more to come. So that's a major achievement. And I guess I'm most proud to be alive, healthy, and have a lot of wonderful, fabulous friends. And I like to share the wealth. So I host a lot of parties, and I'm about to close a real estate deal here in Rome. I'm getting this big, fabulous villa surrounded by my own private garden. It's all gated off with a separate guest house and 3.5 stories or 4 stories. And first thing I'm gonna move in there is my 9-foot Hamburg Steinway piano, my drum set, some amplifiers, and even before I move the furniture in, I'm gonna host a big party for all my wonderful friends here in Rome, and that might include a few of my American friends who are just passing through, because living in Rome is not a living in isolation at all. It's all roads lead to Rome in more ways than one, because all my friends come and visit me here, and I'm hoping that Eli Marcus will be among them soon.
I will finally make my way to Rome, because how can I resist the grand piano? That sounds like a lot of fun in that party. We're at February 23rd, 2023. A lot of people will be listening to this long after today, but a little birdie told me that you're opening a museum show in Italy this Saturday. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this Saturday. I hope you're not. Are you sure we're in February 23? I get dates mixed up. My calendar says
could be the 24th.
24th. Okay. I hate to correct you, but today is Friday, the 24th of February, 2023. Tomorrow, Saturday, the 25th, I have a big museum show opening of, gosh, I don't know how many paintings, maybe 80, maybe 100, maybe only 70. I didn't count, but there'll be a catalog. And I'm going to do a concert there with one of my musical colleagues, Tony Esposito, and he is considered the greatest drummer in Italy, and also he's a songwriter with some hits, some international hits like Caligma de Luna. He'll be playing percussion while I play a grand piano for all the people invited to the opening. Then we're going to do the opening, and then a gala dinner where we'll do an additional short concert for the guests dining. And I'll send you the catalog, and it's really a big deal. It's already been getting a lot of pre-press. Yeah, that's really meaningful, doing museum shows where the works aren't necessarily for sale, and it's more cultural. Because I spend a lot of my time going to art shows, helping art dealers sell art that they already bought from me. And that's really fun too. But the museum shows are a whole different thing.
So I hear there's a new hotel in Rome, and all the rooms actually have Kostabi art. Tell me about that.
Yes. Let me just back up 1 second. I forgot to tell you, the show in Italy is in a city called Pescara, and it's at the Museo di Gente di Abruzzo. Okay, in case anyone's out in Italy around, you can see that show there, in Pescara. So the hotel is about to open a little bit later this year, possibly in the spring. That's what the goal is. They are angling to be the best hotel in Rome. Right now, it's considered the Hassler or the Eden, or some people say it's Hotel de Russi. This one is near Hotel de Russi by Piazza del Popolo, and it's called Romeo Hotel. One of them already exists in Naples, and that's widely considered the best hotel in Naples. And they have 5 of my paintings and 1 sculpture in the Naples version. The Rome version, whose interior was designed by the famous architect Zaha Hadid, she died while she was just as she finished the design. So her studio is finishing it. She's one of the greatest architects of all time. So the interior is very space age and modern and very creative. And every room has a Kostabi painting or a print in it. And then there's a giant Kostabi sculpture outside by the pool. And the pool is going to be a trip, because when they were excavating the pool, they discovered ancient Roman ruins. And so the laws in Italy are to protect these ancient ruins. So it's going to be a glass bottom pool where you can see the ruins underneath you while you're swimming.
So, Mark, you've achieved a lot of great success. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
That's a small version of the giant sculpture that is going to be at the Romeo Hotel. It's called Service. You see, it's a faceless figure holding up the top half of his head, kind of serving.
How tall would you say, for those who are just listening in audio?
Okay, it's going to be almost 2 meters tall, 190, and it's going to be shiny black bronze. So you got to check it out, even if you are not going to stay there. Of course, you can go to the restaurant and see my art in the lobby and by the pool. Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Eli.
It's all good. Question. We're friends bantering back and forth. You know what intrigues me is you've had a lot of success in the art world. That goes without saying. You've done something which most people haven't done, which you're also in the music world having success. It's easy for a guy like you to just simply say at this point, why not just kick back in a hammock, go to Hawaii, and just, live off the fat of the land? What still drives Mark Kostabi?
Well, I would get bored if I was on the beach full time. I enjoy like vegetating in the water a little bit, like 1 hour here, another hour there. But if I had to do that every day, I would go crazy. And I pride myself in never being bored, precisely because I avoid the easy life. Not that my art life is hard; it's easy and fun, but it's also like a chess game, or I have to make lots and lots of decisions and keep everything going smooth and fast and afloat. It's just more interesting that way. And also, Rome is a little more relaxing than New York. No one moves to New York to relax, and I don't think you move to Rome to relax either. But the Italians have a certain quality of life where they have long lunches and long dinners and breaks throughout the day. So it is a little more relaxing here. But I don't feel like I'm on vacation here. I'm working all the time, but it's fun work. So it doesn't feel like work. It feels like winning at a game.
So I am a New Yorker, and I have friends of all denominations and economic statuses. And I think the first question that a lot of them are probably ask me when I bring up your name is, how much is the range of your paintings that they can expect if they go down to Soho and visit the Park West Gallery?
Good question. Okay, there at that gallery at the moment, they have 35 of my original pieces. And I think there are some paintings on paper there that hover around $6,000 or $7,000, which is very low. And then small paintings on canvas are like, I think 10 and 12,000. Then when they get up to like 18 by 24 inches, they're over that. They're more like 14 or 15. I'm not quoting exact prices. These are just so quasi. And then there's some that are more like 30,000 or 40. They don't have any of my giant paintings that go for 180, but the range down there is probably from around, did I say 8,000? Yeah, 8,000 to 30,000 roughly. But that gives you a good idea. But the best way to do it is just to go there and ask, or call there.
Well, I'm not a salesperson for you and I'm not shilling for you, but my instinct is when it comes to art is I don't see too many artistic paintings from people who are well known that go down. I don't think the Keith Haring's, if you had bought his painting back when he was alive, probably would have been a bad idea, or Andy Warhol back in the day.
Yeah.
And so it seems like paintings just keep going up and up and up. Isn't pretty much that the case with a well-known artist?
That is the case if there's a support system that continues to promote the artist. And in my case, I have all those museum collections, so it's kind of guaranteed. And also a myth is that the artist's work goes up in value as soon as he or she dies. That's not true generally. Usually it's the opposite, because like a not so famous artist, when he or she dies, there's nobody around to promote it after, because the artist is often his or her greatest promoter. And so when he or she's gone, there's no one around there. But Andy Warhol had an army of dealers and supporters promoting his work. So when he passed away, they didn't stop. So at first, his prices went down when he tragically died young at age 58 in 1987. They actually went down because people were flooding the market thinking now was the time to sell. And it went down. And then since then, they gradually rose. And now he's sold paintings for over $100 million at auction. Basquiat, I knew him personally, and I visited him in his studio one day in 1986, a year before he passed away approximately. And his studio was piled with artworks, just paintings everywhere. There was a desk that had what looked like 300 drawings just piled up, one on top of the other, all in disarray. And I was excited to meet him and be in his presence as a fellow artist, wanting to experience the Basquiat mythology in person. That was enough for me, but I didn't have the mindset of an art collector, but I had the money. I could easily have bought some of those drawings, and I'd have a few extra million today. I remember when Keith Haring was selling his line drawings for under $1,000 each, and I was sitting in his gallery, Tony Shafrazi gallery, talking with Tony, and Keith walked in with a new stack of drawings. I said, okay. And Tony said, we sold all the other ones. Now they're going to be $1,000 each. These are the same drawings that now sell for 300 or 400,000 or even $500,000. Because I know that for a fact, because I brokered one I sold one for a dealer for $350,000 to an art dealer in Europe, who immediately sold it for $450,000. He made a $100,000 profit instantly. And that was the same kind of drawing that I would see in 1982 selling for $1,000 each.
Mark, when we talk about someone as iconic as Andy Warhol, right? First image, for some reason, it comes to my mind is the Studio 54 days with him hanging out there with Bianca Jagger and all the stars of the day. It's a time that, just doesn't exist any longer. Is part of that persona that he developed and the people he hung out with, that sort of, once in a lifetime sort of, image that he created, is that part, you think, of his mystique and the price of his paintings, or is it all just his art and his talent?
Oh, no, no, no. He absolutely followed the 6 rules of how to become a rich and famous artist. And rule number 3 is circulate. And him going to Studio 54 with all those celebrities every night, that was like quintessential networking back in the 70s. So he totally understood those rules. He didn't break any of them. And some artists can actually succeed by only doing 5 of those rules. But the less of those rules you follow, the less likely you'll succeed, and the harder it will be. Andy, he had a story. He was very professional. I mean, he ran numerous businesses. You can't run a magazine, an art studio, a film studio, and he was a professional model with a modeling agent. Before he became a famous painter, he was one of New York's top illustrators. That required a lot of professionalism. So he was no like out of control, asocial bohemian nutcase, like some successful artists were, but he was not. He was very professional, and he certainly did rule number 6: get other people to work for you, because he had the factory, the Warhol's factory, which was very prolific, helping him produce his art. So yeah, it's not just the great work. Making great art is rule number 1 for a reason. And if you make bad art and do all the other 5 rules, you can still be successful, but you probably won't go down in the history books. You might be a multimillionaire and have a lot of fun, but the good art is what will give you that historical significance, the great art.
Let's land on rule number 6, which I find pretty fascinating. You talk about getting other people to work for you. What does that do for you? Does that free you up to be able to do what you do best? Is that the most important part of that rule?
Well, that is a part of it, yeah. Another important part is it allows you to satisfy the demand for your work. For example, in 20th century art history, Marcel Duchamp is considered equally important as an artist as Pablo Picasso or Andy Warhol, and perhaps even more important. But he did not produce a lot of art, and so he doesn't have an army of art dealers out there promoting it. There's not much to sell. He got in the art history books, and everyone learns about him, but he doesn't have a huge market. Nothing like the 2 barometers of the art market, which are Warhol and Picasso. If their art goes up, it means the market's doing well in general, and vice versa. Yeah, there are numerous reasons that add to the value of art. But and also, I should clarify, when I say get other people to work for you, I'm not saying do what I did, which is have a big art studio with rows of art assistants painting for me, and that got me on CNN and Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous and all sorts of TV shows and People magazine and cover of New York magazine. I'm not saying you have to do that. Mm-hmm. Getting other people to work for you would be like your friends talking enthusiastically about your work. Picasso, for example, he didn't have, except for one painting, a big mural he did that was in the Four Seasons Hotel at some point a few years ago. That was executed by assistants, and it's considered an original Picasso. But all his other paintings he painted by himself. He didn't need assistants to help him paint, but he certainly had people promoting him. His dealer, Kahnweiler, enlisted a whole platoon of other art dealers who Kahnweiler would give out a few Kostabi, a few Picassos here, a few Picassos there. I slipped by calling Picasso Kostabi for a second. I'm lucky to have a good artist's name, Plus, both 7 letters, Kostabi, Picasso, something like that. Anyway, yeah, so definitely have to. It's a teamwork. Getting media people to embrace you, and I throw a lot of parties, as I mentioned earlier, and I don't serve drinks in plastic. I buy the best Riedel champagne glasses and wine glasses. And I don't serve cheap wine. I serve real champagne, you know, with a capital C, and I hire great caterers, and I hire the best New York jazz musicians to perform live, and nobody has to pay. So I had no trouble filling up a party, and everyone has a good time. And so I spend a lot of money on these parties without expecting anything in return except having a good time for myself and for my friends. But inevitably, someone will buy a painting or two, and then the expenses for the party are more than covered. So that's an example. Go ahead.
You know, I love what you're just saying, because when you make people feel good, you don't have to sell them. They're already themselves sold because they're feeling good. They like you. They like the environment they're in, you know, and let's face it, you know, are people going to buy something when they're angry, or are people going to buy things when they're having the best champagne with great music and a great environment? So it's a great rule.
Yeah, and some of these people are shopping for art anyway, and I'm just making it easy for them because my house has, in New York, I have 5 floors, and every floor is floor-to-ceiling paintings, drawings, and sculptures. So it's a no-brainer. And then when Park West hosts parties at my townhouse, the Park West Gallery, they do it here in Rome too. They'll bring in sometimes 160 collectors, and the same thing happens, all the champagne and the food. But those guests are not close personal friends of mine. They're becoming friends of mine because I meet them on the cruise ships, etc. But they have to qualify for the invitation. They're invited only if they buy a certain number of certain dollar amount of Kostabi art. Like one recently was you have to have bought $50,000 worth of Mark Kostabi art, and then you'll be invited to the Kostabi experience at his townhouse in Chelsea. And they put the collectors up in a deluxe hotel and invite them out to a dinner at a restaurant, usually that's full of my work, like some of Shelley Fireman's restaurants. There's a Red Eye Grill on the corner of 56th and 7th, and Trattoria del Monte.
Trattoria dell'Arte with the big nose in the window. Yep.
Right.
Bond 45. Nose. Yeah, in Times Square.
And Bond 45 and Cafe Fiorello across the street from Lincoln Center on Broadway. All these restaurants have Kostabi paintings in them, thanks to Shelley Fireman, who owns them, who has become a very good friend of mine, and he bought a lot of my art. And I visit him here in Italy too. He loves Italy like I do, makes his own art here in Pietrasanta, where I also cast sculptures.
So, Mark, how do we find out more about you, and how do we find out more about the Park West Gallery?
Well,
give us some websites.
I'm very active on social media. I have an Instagram page and a Facebook page, and I post my favorite latest work all the time, every day, usually a painting or two. And so Instagram would be Mark_Kostabi, and Facebook is just Mark Kostabi. There's more than one Mark Kostabi on Facebook, but I'm the one that has the detail of the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion painting behind my face. You mentioned in my intro that I did album covers. The people I did them for are numerous, but the most famous are Guns N' Roses. I did Use Your Illusion #1 and 2, and both of those together they've sold over 36 million copies. They're about to perform here in Rome in June. Can't wait. And also the last Ramones album cover.
Yeah, the boys from Queens, where I grew up.
Oh, yeah, you know that. Wow. Yeah, I did Adios Amigos. Actually, that was thanks to my brother Paul Kostabi, who's also a painter and a musician who shows and performs music also at Park West Gallery. He became very good friends with Joey Ramone in the late 80s and suggested to Joey that they use my painting on their cover. And I had done this painting of 2 dinosaurs wearing pointed hats, and Joey apparently didn't mind being referred to as a dinosaur, but he didn't want to be a dunce because it looked like a dunce hat to him. So they changed them digitally, or back then they didn't even have whatchamacallit, Photoshop, but they somehow changed the pointed hats into sombreros. And that one sells now for $500 a copy because it's out of print, and I had to buy a copy. I found a used one for $180, but brand new ones go for $500 a copy, unsigned by any of the Ramones or me. Then I've done a lot of jazz album covers and other rock albums and my own album covers. Oh, you mentioned I did it my way earlier. My first album of my music was solo piano music, and I titled it, I Did It Steinway.
Oh, I like that.
Thank
Great play on words. Well, I'm going to go down to the Park West Gallery, and I'm going to check out every single one of your paintings. I'm excited about that. I'm going to be flying to Italy. If you have a party, give me a good excuse to get there. That's for sure. And I want to really thank you for sharing your wisdom today. I learned a lot from you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Eli. Eli Marcus, like your last name.
You got it. Stay well. Stay blessed.
Okay.